Hi Flosstube, this is Barb with Lost in Floss, coming to you today, May 29th, 2025, from my sewing room in the great state of Wisconsin. Woohoo! But I have something very exciting to share with you today. For a number of months, probably more like years, people have asked me how I do the aging on some of the pillows that I've finished. And so today I'm finally done with my project and ready to show it to you. But I just want to say the tutorial will be many clips pieced together because I probably started aging this piece, I don't know, a number of months ago. And I probably have mentioned numerous times that for me, I just have to have patience with the process and not try to rush it. I need to do a little bit and then step away, come back, take a look at my results, and then, maybe redo it again. So basically, yesterday I fully finished my pillow. And then this morning I looked at it and I'm like, oh, one of the corners was way too light and I thought it just needed a little bit more blending. So I decided to get out my paintbrush and my solution and give it another quick touch up, and now I'm really happy with the results. So I will be showing that to you shortly. Before we go into further clips, I'll show you the pillow, but just wanted to go over again the supplies that are needed. So first off are these walnut shells. I got them in a bag from Country Sampler in Spring Green, Wisconsin. And I have no idea if your black walnut shells at home, if you can get the same results. I'm not going to speak for that. These aren't that expensive, so I suggest that, you go that route. I've aged a number of things already, and I can't say that I've even used, I don't know, maybe a 1/16 of the bag. It still feels pretty full. And then the other thing I keep on hand is just a jar. I think this was from pizza sauce, that I just added a little bit of water to. You don't need a lot. And just a few of the walnut crystals. And then I stir it up real good. That way you don't have any worry about having fresh crystals that might leave marks on your stitching. So I just throw this in my closet when I'm done, and it's very easy to have on hand. And if I need to take it out, then I do. The other things, I have an assortment of brushes, but I have to say I usually definitely like a fine one, and not like a cheap one like this, but you can get brushes like this at your craft store for not that much money, and it just is very nice to have a thin tip like that, so you can go around very small details. And then I also use I think this one might be even finer, so you can I'll put it against my shirt so you can maybe see it better. But then I also keep on hand like a brush more like this. And along with it, I save plastic lids, like from a yogurt container, that works good for a little tray to mix the okay, wait, time out. I was astounded when people told me I have a Midwest accent. I always thought that I talked just like the people on the news. Well, guess what? Paying attention, I realize there are lots of words that I don't really say correctly. Like going to the store instead of going to the store. Well, anyways, you didn't come here to learn about that foolishness. So, timeout is over with. Back in session. Okay, so what were we saying? The brushes, the plastic lid. I keep a spray bottle of water, just the one that I usually have by my ironing board, paper towels, and in the beginning, I highly suggest just take a scrap piece of linen and just try it out. The thing is, the water alone will discolor your linen a little bit and give you some shading. So I guess the key is to build in layers and not to get the fabric too wet, and just go slow and take your time, and don't hold me responsible if it doesn't turn out. This just works for me, and yeah, I hope you give it a try. You know, I've done it mostly on smaller projects that it's not gonna be the end of the world if I screw it up and it doesn't go like I had planned. But anyways, I'm going to try to piece in the original stitch piece here. And as you can see, I purposely used linen and floss that wouldn't show up very well. So there was not much contrast at all between the stitches and the linen. And I did that on purpose just to demonstrate that you can have something like that happen and there's still a solution. So without further ado, may I present my pillow. Now I know it's really out of season, but I think this was from, hold on, I'm gonna go check because it's a freebie and I want to give her, whoops. I want to give her credit. Okay, this was from Tiny Modernist. I just had a little bit of something hit my ankle, fell off my finishing. So okay, so Tiny Modernist. It was this cute little snowflake. So I stitched it on just a 36 count linen. And then I think I just used, I don't know if I used a silk or just an overdyed or what I used. But as you can see, I wanted it to be old and crusty looking. So for a finish, I chose Lady Dot Chenille and this hurly squirrely print that I think really coordinates well with the front. But as you can see, I antiqued within the snowflake and around the edges. there was one point where I had a little accident, and that was my blob. So I needed to go over it, and it was just the way I wanted it before that, of course. So I just had to go over it a little bit, and I like that. I mean, it's not perfect, but you want it to look old and grungy. So now I'm going to piece together the clips of how I did this. And please, please be careful when you do this. I don't want anybody to contact me and say, I encouraged you and you screwed up. I mean, do it at your own risk. That is definitely my caveat, but also give it a try. I mean, what have you got to lose? You can practice on something you just don't care about, and it changes the look of a project 100%. I mean, you could stitch it on something plain and then just go over it lightly or whatever. The sky's the limit. So give it a try. I hope if you do, some of you send me some pictures that I can share later on a follow-up. Well, it won't be a follow-up to this, but my regular floss tube. Email me at lostinfloss2, like the number, at gmail.com. And I wish you good luck, and I hope you have good results. And I don't know, it's just fun to learn a new technique and just practice with it. I mean, I really didn't have anyone showing me how to do it. I've seen videos or talked to people who wash all their flosses first, and I just, I never know what I'm going to want to antique. So I do it more with getting as lightly close to the stitching as I can without actually getting the floss that's stitched on the project wet. The other thing I can say is if you work on something and then you get it on your floss, as long as the floss doesn't run, you can always just pick out that little section and restitch it, and it'll be more vibrant again than the piece that went over with the walnut shells. So anyways, give it a whirl. Best of luck to you, and I hope to get some messages that you gave it a try and had some great success. You can do it. All right, here we go. Let's talk about some of the things that you need. First and foremost, I would like to put out the disclaimer that this is just how I do it. I highly recommend that you try it on a piece that you don't really care about, like that you haven't spent hours and hours and hours stitching on, because if you make a mistake, I don't want to be the one that you come crying to and say, what the heck did you tell me to do this for? I've used it on some smalls when my color stitching doesn't show up well enough and I kind of have run out of alternatives to try. And so today, I still have my needle in it, but I have this piece that I purposely stitched on a neutral color with an off-white floss. And it's going to be an experiment for all of us. The things you need to get started, I recommend having something to cover your working surface. I just saved this from some purchase, and it's a nice weight of plastic. It doesn't get staticky. You'll need the walnut crystals. I can't find my bag of the product I bought, but I bought it from Country Sampler. They sell little bags, and basically they kind of look like instant coffee granules, and they come in a plastic bag, I suppose, so that the moisture doesn't get in. And what I started doing was just taking any old jar, small jar, and I put just a couple of the crystals and some water in there, and I just store it in my closet for when I need it. The other things you'll need are paper towel. Is always good to have on hand. I have some water in my Dixie cups that I can use. This is just old cover, but a lot of times I'll save jar lids because then I can throw them away when I'm done. And I have an assortment of brushes. I don't think you'd ever be using a big brush. I even like ones that are this small. This is probably a good one that I haven't really used, but you can see that it's pretty tiny. That allows you to get up to the stitching, but not get the stitching wrecked up. I mean, I'll also keep a brush maybe this size. I'll probably keep these handy so that I have them ready to go. So you'll be shocked at how little you'll need of this solution. So I'm going to shake mine up good, and I'm going to just pour a tiny, tiny bit in this cover. So I have this little drop, and I'll probably start. Now, the way I do it, I like to have a scrap piece of paper towel that I'm constantly taking my brush and taking the water off. I'm going to maybe put some water on this tray too. You can see that, right? Yeah. I want to make sure. I can't really see because the... and I'm just going to try this out like on this part here, just so we get an idea of what the saturation level is. Sometimes I dab it, sometimes I don't. But I highly, highly, highly recommend. I mean, you saw how little I dipped in there. And this is like lighter than tea. Some of the walnut crystal is coming off, but look how dark that is. I mean, it'll probably dry a little bit lighter, but I recommend just starting with a very, very, very thin solution. So I'm going to take my brush, and then, like, a lot of times I will just, on my paper towel, brush it. Perhaps I'll put my glasses on so I really can get an idea of where these stitches are. But you're just ever so lightly brushing along and then brushing out. So, like, I don't go too far out because I know I'm just going to make this a little pin pillow. But so you don't really even see the color on this, but I will keep going back and build this color up. So, I mean, it looks like nothing, but eventually it will look like something. And if you go too much at once, then it's gonna like give you a halo effect, or else it'll bleed into your floss. If you keep doing it like this, then it feathers it out, and I can get right into that area. I think I'm going to keep working on this side. I mean, it is amazing how, like, I really don't like to use a lot. So if you are not a patient person, I wouldn't suggest even trying this, because, well, unless you do it a different way. But the way I do it, I just really keep going very slowly and work my way around. I guess maybe we'll leave this area so eventually you can see the contrast. Now I'm going to just keep working on this. And, you know, it's always better to weak, because eventually it will build up, but you can't take it away once it's there. I've got this little bug flying around, driving me nuts. I don't know where he came from. But, I mean, this really looks like nothing. But this spot here that I already did it feels dry, and look how dark that is. So that's why you really get some more water. Maybe I'll just pour a little bit onto this side. I won't have to keep dipping in my cup. But it is amazing how very little you need. And when you reload your brush, I try to start like out further and then work my way in as I've used some of the liquid off my brush. I'm going to keep working on this one side. And I probably, you know, obviously I'm not going to just, because this is a long process, I'm not going to film the whole thing. Or if I do, I'll speed it up. Sometimes you have to even, like, brush the way the fibers are going. I don't really have enough to say. Like, people record these and just do it like live or whatever. I'd be lost. I think I'm going to use the rounded brush. No, that's going to be crazy. Yeah, look, there you can kind of see how much it runs in there. And really, like, once it's saturated, then I think you can go back in and do a little bit more of the pigment. So I think what I like about this way is a lot of the other techniques you have to know you want to antique in advance. And usually I'm using this as a way to like save a piece that wasn't dark enough. And so, or there wasn't enough contrast. So that's what I like about doing it this way. Because if I was going to be brushing over my floss, I wouldn't, you know, like then you have to, I think they usually whatever they call that, where you get them wet and let the color bleed off of them. And that's a lot of work. Plus, I don't know that, you know, I'm just not sure I would antique a big piece like this. But it works really well for little pieces. Maybe, and I've done little areas where something didn't show up, and that's been fine. If you're using, that is, if you're using a mottled fabric. If it's all one color, it has no tone on tone, then that's not going to work so well. I am going to leave a portion of this undone though, so that I can come back and see the difference. And like I always kind of think of how much of a margin I'm going to be leaving so that, like for instance, I'll bring the color out here. So that when I go to finish it, it won't be too stark. But you don't have to worry quite as much on the outer edge. You're just trying to get it, you know, so it's not like solid either. You want variegation in the lights and darkness of it. Or at least I do. That's my intent. But can you see it's starting to take shape? Now to do the inner part, I definitely am going to take the smaller brush again. Let's maybe have fun with that a little bit. Okay, this you really have to be all right. So I thought I would show you how this is looking. You can see some areas that don't have any of the walnuts, and some areas are starting to look appropriately dark. And if you remember, this is my test piece right there that I just put a blob on so you could see the color differentiation. But, well, that's that's the paper towel, so don't take a look at that. But you can see the outside of the piece where nothing has touched it yet and the difference. So I'm going to keep working on this and then show it to you in a little bit again. I also wanted to show you, so I rinsed out my brushes, but I left that blob of dye in the little pan that I'm using to mix my solution. And you can see it's really kind of like instant coffee granules. And I'll be able to mix it up again. The other thing to really be aware of is you need to really mix this in, because if you get any bit of the undissolved solution, it'll just make a big dark mark, and you definitely don't want that. So I'm going to start painting again, and I'll show you how it looks in a little bit. All right. I mean, this kind of looks like a hot mess, but you can see how the stitching is starting to come out a lot. I've moved over to my sewing machine area because it's right by in a window, so I have a direct source of light. But I've been working on this a lot, well, not a lot, but some this morning. And here, let me show you. I guess it looks like a ginormous, but I've been using this brush a lot, as well as this one. This one to get into these tiny little areas. What I do is put my brush up and down, make sure I'll dip it in some of the solution, and then I'll just dab it on the paper towel. The other thing I'll do is, if this area is wet, like even with water, I'll dab it on the outside there. But as you can see, I'm trying to get a border around it. And this is the tray. I've still only used that one drop of solution that I had pre-mixed ahead of time, and now have just been going back with my little bit of water, and basically, I'll move this over. So I'll dab it in the cup and then just put some on the tray. Sorry, all my other junk. So like that. I got a new phone, so it has more, the buttons are in a different position. But basically, we just want to get a little bit of the dried crystal solution. And very important, I've mentioned this before, but you want to make sure that it's totally dissolved, because if you have a crystal piece, it's going to leave a big mess. But so this is pretty substantially loaded. I can't really see through this, but and you can see how dark that is. So if I put that on, let's go on a different, this area right here hasn't been done. It's going to leave a very concentrated bit of color. And, what I like to do is, then maybe just dip it in some water again and start not real close to the stitching line, and let that moisture kind of wick its way closer. And then I'm always trying to, I'll dip this in water. I'm always trying to keep this line kind of, so it's not a real harsh line. That makes sense. So I'm going to keep working on this. I think probably one of the most important things is just to, one, have, good brushes. They don't have to be expensive, but you can't use like a brush that was meant for a child. Like go into the artist section, and you might have to spend, I don't know, a couple dollars on a brush, but believe me, it'll be well worth it, because you just get the same ability to get in those tight spots. But I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll come back and show you a little bit later when I'm feeling like it's almost there, but I'm going to keep working on it a little bit more. I'm finally getting back to working on this little snowflake pillow. As you can see, it's much darker than it was the last time you saw it. And even with all the times I've put in the caution that you should be careful not to put too much on, what happened to me was, because I hadn't worked on it in a long time, I wanted to add just a touch more to the shading, and I shook up the jar and had it far enough away, but I forgot when I opened the top of the jar, I had the stitch piece right underneath it, and a big blop came like right there. So then I had to go in and I added some more here and there and everywhere. And really, once this is done, it'll be fine. I think one other thing to mention was if it really would cover your stitching, let me just take a scissors here, like this area, if it would have been so it didn't show up at all, I could have just pulled out the stitches in that little area and stitched over them again. So that is always an option too, if by some chance this really doesn't work out well for you. But at this point, I'm going to get this all ready and turn it into a little pillow. Gave it a try and had some great success. You can do it. Toodles, and please continue to fill the world with love. Bye.